compassion and justice pieces are what part of what I'll be talking about today. Have you ever felt anger quickly rise inside of you because something someone else said or did? Or maybe even anger at something in the news that flares your temper and frustration? I know these feelings well, and I would imagine that most of you do too. We're surrounded by anger. Vicious political and moral arguments on TV and radio, honking horns and rude gestures, even road rage as we drive. And in recent years, all the comments on social media that blow up into major outbursts of hurt feelings and rupture in families and among friends. You feel that you've been wronged, or maybe other vulnerable people have been hurt, and we become frustrated. Most of the time, striking out or bursting forth with an angry response isn't a very good choice. But sometimes we or others do respond with angry words or actions. And in extreme cases, as we've seen fairly recently on a regular basis, some people even respond with deadly actions. I read a story of a newspaper reporter who frequently butted heads with his editor-in-chief over approval of his articles. One of his colleagues noticed that the young man was in the editor's office, which had lots of glass windows, and you could tell that they were arguing by their gestures, angry gestures, and red faces. The rest of the office watched as the editor tore up the young man's article in front of his enraged face. Now, this was in a time before we had computers, so it wasn't a matter of just going back and telling the computer to print it again. It was gone. The rest of the office watched while he tore up the article, and the young reporter stormed out of the editor's office, and you could almost see the steam blowing out of his ears as he stared off into space, muttering to himself. Suddenly, he grabbed one of the heavy electric typewriters from a nearby desk, yanked its plug out of the socket, and threw it through one of the huge glass windows of the editor's office, right at the editor, who fortunately saw it coming and jumped out of the way. It scared the wits out of everyone, who silently stared in shock at the young man, who collapsed on the floor into a catatonic stupor. An ambulance was called and took him away to be treated. Here was an example of an extreme anger and an extreme response. We're all aware of the many incidents of violence and terrorism in our country around the world over the past few years, and most, if not all of these, were precipitated by anger, sometimes anger that burned and grew over the years, and the incidents were actions of anger, frustration, and innocent people have died or been seriously injured. Why? Some possible and real reasons have been given, but it's impossible to know what goes through someone's mind leading up to and what exactly triggered these actions. We do live in a time when fear, anger, and frustration with social systems have led to angry outbursts and violent outbursts. Anger is a very real human emotion. Aaron Ben-Zayev, co-director of a Center for Interdisciplinary Research on Emotions at the University of Haifa in Israel, gives this definition for anger. Anger is a specific negative emotional attitude towards another person or agent considered to have inflicted harm upon us. Anger can be caused by a belief that the object of anger has committed a blameworthy act, a perceived threat to something of value to the subject, a belief that the object deserves to be punished. Anger has also been called the combative emotion. It's an explosive liberation of psychical force, which in the moment it hits us can pull us out of our normal self. Anger can be a dangerous emotion, even evil in its destructiveness. It can confuse our judgment and our understanding of reality. When we are in the grip of anger, we rarely see clearly and often miss the big picture of what is happening. Even Jesus expressed anger, although not in life-threatening ways. It's recorded in the Bible. He overturned the money changers' table in the temple. He got angry with the disciples on occasion, and he was angry many, many times with the religious authorities, and they were angry with him in return. Jesus used the term brood of vipers in today's gospel lesson, as well as in some other verses, to describe and insult certain people who opposed him. There's another category of anger that we should also recognize, and that is righteous anger. It can give us the courage to do things that we might not otherwise be able to do, and help us to overcome fear. It can help us speak out against evil or injustice, things we say to ourselves or complain about, but don't voice out loud. Robert Law, who wrote devotionals on the emotions of Jesus, writes this: "Like all natural emotions, anger in itself is neither good nor bad. It is merely a force, a gunpowder of the soul, which, according to how it is directed, may blast away the obstructions of evil, or defend us from the temptation as well as with a wall of fire, or which may again work devastating injury in our own and other lives." Righteous anger can be a tool that God can use through us to help others. The water crisis in Flint is one example. Lots of people are angry about that. Yet 8 United Methodist churches in Flint right now are collection and distribution centers for water and filters. And the United Methodist Committee on Relief, which is UMCOR for short, has sent money and supplies to the Flint area as well to help the people there. People are doing something. They're angry, but they're doing something about righting the wrong. They're using their anger as a positive force to help others. Jesus used anger against Satan to give himself strength to withstand temptation in the wilderness. He incited anger in the religious authorities when he taught for the first time in the synagogue in Nazareth and claimed the scripture for himself, and then incited anger in the Pharisees with his message and healing ways, his challenges to their authority and to their laws. He challenged the religious customs and practices by spending time with drunks, prostitutes, tax collectors, and other sinners or unclean people. Jesus also carefully responded to the anger of others with reasonable, though sometimes cryptic, answers, parables too, and offering a fresh approach to life in God's unending love. He didn't allow himself to be drawn into an argument. Even during the Passion, he calmly took the punishing, angry, and brutal blows from the guards and did not fight back. The Reverend Peter Wallace, who is a Presbyterian pastor, wrote a book called The Passionate Jesus, which is actually the basis for our sermon series this month. He says, in essence, there are 2 kinds of angers: the anger of the world, which is the anger of fear and selfishness, and the righteous anger of Jesus, which is the anger of love and justice. He talks about holy anger, a righteous indignation regarding oppression and injustice in our times. It is one of the purest, loftiest emotions of which the human spirit is capable. The fiery spark which is struck by wrongdoing out of a soul that loves the right. Righteous anger towards inequity and injustice has been a hallmark of many movements and even wars throughout our history. The Occupy Wall Street movement in 2011, and of course the civil rights movement, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s efforts, are just 2 examples. In regard to the Occupy Wall Street movement, the Reverend Elizabeth Keaton, an Episcopal priest, said she heard a distinct message during Occupy Wall Street. People are really angry about greed. That's what made Jesus turn over a few tables in the temple. Greed and corruption. That's the moral problem I think the church needs to speak to. We need to become prophetic while being pastoral to those who are struggling and hurting. And the United Methodist Church today is designated as Human Relations Sunday. This is the first of 6 special focus Sundays throughout the year, and it's a call to us to recognize the right of all God's children in realizing their potential as human beings in relationship with each other. And its purpose is to further the development of better human relationships around the world. Any contributions received for this special Sunday help to strengthen United Methodist outreach to encourage social justice and work with at-risk students. This special Sunday is placed next to the National Martin Luther King Jr. holiday intentionally, designed to help communities live out the dream of a beloved community, to put aside our differences and destructive anger to serve others. Martin Luther King Day is designated as a day of service, not a day off, as I told the children this morning. To me, it's incredible that Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech was given over 50 years ago, and it still has incredible value and wisdom for today. I encourage you to be a part of the weekend celebration in the Huron Valley community. Today, people will gather at the Kroger parking lot at 1 p.m. and the march on Main Street will begin. Everyone who can walk are welcome, and there's also a bus for those that have walking difficulty. And it will come back to the parking lot after the program at the Shack. And again, you can see all of the artwork that was submitted for this year's contest at the Shack. Monday, there's going to be a bowl painting party at the Shack for Community Sharing's Empty Bowls project. I know a lot of people have been involved in that or have at least gone to the Empty Bowls event. And it's another way that you can get out and do a little bit of service, especially expressing your artistic skills. But it's not necessary to have artistic skills. And then, of course, at 6 p.m., we will have America's Monday supper, potluck supper here at Milford, with the film of a young woman from Michigan who was trafficked and managed to escape. There's many ways that people of faith can be involved in helping set things in order and extending God's love to all. Whether it be making a particular effort to do something close to your heart, such as shelter for the homeless, feeding and clothing the poor, making quilts and shawls and throws for those who need God's love, visiting the sick or those in prison, serving those with special needs or youth who need mentors. There are opportunities for everyone all over. Keep your eyes and ears open for details of our church's new event on Sunday, May 15th. It's called The Church Has Left the Building, and it's part of the National United Methodist Church's Change the World weekend. I would leave you today with a quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a question from Reverend Peter Wallace. These excerpts are from the I Have a Dream speech. Dr. King said, "I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted and every hill and mountain be made low. The rough places will be made plain and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day." Peter Wallace asks us this question, and I ask you the same question to ponder today. Oops. How might your holy anger be channeled into a loving, righteous action? One more time. How might your holy anger be channeled into a loving, righteous action? Amen.